Okay, we're going. So this is the first one I've done live in a little while.
Alright.
Live, like in person, not over Zoom. So I just want to let everyone know we're safely, I don't know, at least
Distancing.
6 feet. Yeah, at least 8 feet apart.
I don't know if it's 8 feet, but it's a good amount of feet.
It's enough.
It's enough.
It would take a lot for a water droplet to fly that far over, so I think we're safe.
Yeah.
And I'll set the scene. We're in the beautiful Amelia and Paul's backyard here. It's one of my favorite places on the planet.
Thank you for having me.
It's so
I'm
peaceful.
excited.
Right on,
This
yeah.
is my first podcast.
Cool.
I've got a lot to say.
Awesome, good. I'm excited. Well, then I'm going to shut the hell up and get you talking then real early on. The only thing I'll say, one, I'd love to get a good, and you can get into it as much as you'd like to, chronological story, growing up in Italy. If you're interested in sharing it, I always like, if you grew up religious, I'm going to assume you grew up Catholic?
Yes.
Okay, we can get into
Just
that.
because, yeah, I will get into
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I'm going to say now, or else I'll forget, is we have to tell the story of when you first walked into one of Paul's meetings.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you walked out in 10 minutes or something like
That's
that.
right.
Okay. So that'll be a tease. We'll come around to that.
Yeah,
So
we have to get into, but you have to remember. You have to
Yes,
remind me
I won't
as
forget.
we go.
Because I don't take notes, so my notes are all just said, and then
that's
now
right.
it's in your head, and
Yeah.
hopefully both of us won't forget.
Yeah.
Okay,
hopefully.
cool. So let's start. I never do a good job of this. Amelia, welcome to Dream Talking.
Thank you, Nick.
And
nice being here.
Let's start at the beginning.
The very beginning?
As
How far in
far
the
back
beginning?
as you can. As far back as you can remember.
I won't start when I was 5.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I grew up in Italy. I won't tell you the year.
1999.
A few years ago. I was raised there. The place where I grew up is this city called Pescara, Pescara. It's a beautiful coast town on the Adriatic Sea. So I spent. It's really an incredible place for kids to grow up.
Sounds like a dream place to grow up.
It is,
yeah.
because you spend basically 4 months out of the year on the beach.
Wow.
Because from May until the end of September, depending on the weather, depending on the year, but you really, that's what you do all summer long.
Nice.
So you play with your friends, and it's a very different concept of beach compared to California. I mean, they have all these nice establishments. They are not far away from each other. They're all very well organized. All the umbrella. You don't have to go to the beach dragging your umbrella and
it's all
your
set
chairs.
up for
It's
you.
all set up there.
Nice.
You rent an umbrella for the summer, which is a very affordable price. Every family has it. And then they have all this establishment. They have food, breakfast, all the best food. It's not that one has a better food than the other. They all have
no matter where
great
you go,
food.
it's going to be good. I think that's Italy in general, isn't it?
Yeah, they have trampolines or all kinds of activities for kids going on all day long, and nothing, and the nightlife doesn't stop. It keeps on going all night long. It's just very. Everybody looks forward to the summertime in Italy. So I grew up in that city. I don't know if I was lucky enough, but when I did, after high school, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to study actually Oriental languages. But that was going to be up in Venice, which it's not that distant considering the distances that we have here in America, but in Italy it was quite far away from Pescara. So my father looked at me, and as a teenager, I was a very rebellious, very into a lot of different things. So my father looked at me and he said, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I said, even if you want to study languages, there is a university in Pescara.
Okay.
In Pescara, University of Foreign Languages.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I did. That's where I learned English, and I also learned Spanish.
So
After
you didn't learn English until you were.
no, I
Yeah.
learned English in school
Okay, yeah,
because
yeah.
you start learning English in Italy from elementary
Uh
school.
huh. Okay. But then you mastered it or
But I
whatever you got.
mastered
Yeah,
when
because I was
I
gonna say your English is amazing. So yeah,
well,
yeah.
I've been living here for 23 years.
Uh
I'm
huh.
hoping that that will make some kind
Well,
of
still.
difference. But no, actually, you would be amazed that my written English is probably better
Oh
than
wow.
my verbal one.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you studied it.
because I studied it. So I was always very interested in languages. Maybe I don't know. It's just my passion. So any
Okay.
language, I pick it up fast, just like I usually pick up the different accents.
Yeah. Uh
Like
huh.
in English,
You
it's
can
just
pick it out
yeah, I
real
pick it
quick.
out and yeah. But anyway, so I went there. I studied did 5 years of university in Italy. I graduated in 1997, and I had some close friends of my family that they were coming to Italy almost every year, or every few years. They had kids who live in Milvalle.
Mm.
They were friends of my uncle in Italy, and so throughout the years, I had we know we have met. We had almost not every summer, but every few summers. So I knew these people, and I had come here to visit them in a few years back in 1993 while I was still in university in Italy in
Oh, so you
college.
came here to Mill Valley.
I came
Yeah.
here and I liked it so much, but I only came for like a few weeks. So I decided that after graduating, I was gonna come back and spend some time here.
Mhm.
That's what I did just after graduating. In June 1997, I was already here,
Okay.
and enrolled at College of Marine because I wanted to do some more intensive English courses.
Yeah.
That's what I did, and that the same summer, that summer, I would say a few days after I arrived, I met this Italian guy
Okay.
who was gonna become my husband and the father of my kids.
So he lived here, was not connected to uncle or any of
No,
that.
no,
Okay.
he was
That's where I
already
thought it
living.
was going. Okay.
No, he
Okay.
was already living here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But you guys connected over. Oh, you're Italian. I
Oh,
grew up
you're
in Italy.
Italian,
Uh-huh.
yes. And he used to have this coffee shop close by where I used to live at this people's house where I
Mhm.
used to stay.
Mhm.
So yeah, I went there to drink a few espressos a day because that's
And I'm sure they're pretty good, right?
yeah,
Because he's
they were
from
pretty
Italy.
good. I was missing
Yeah.
espresso so much after a few weeks that I had been here. I was like, I'm not drinking this shitty coffee
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
went there and yeah, and we started to go out and yeah, that was the beginning of another phase of my life.
Mm.
Eventually, we got married a few years later. We have 4 kids together,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that's how
Well,
it went.
we don't. You're welcome to get into that as much as you want or as little as you want.
Yeah.
I know it's painful and but another part. So we were right up before we went on mic. I was saying some of the podcasts that I enjoy that I listen to regularly, and one I always mention is called "You Made It Weird,"
Mhm.
which is a comedian, Pete Holmes, and he talks a lot with other comedians, not just comedians, but and his thing is his podcasts are almost like a therapy session.
Uh-huh.
Like it's cool, it's not it's two friends. It's not a therapist and a
Yeah.
yeah, a shrink and a
Yeah.
client. But it can be it's a cool opportunity. It's very rare in life in modern society that you sit down and talk to somebody for an hour, just
Yeah.
one on one, or
Yeah. Especially with a friend, right?
especially with a friend.
Because
Yeah.
you always think you need. It's so strange because in Italy, I when I grew up now, I think it's different. But the concept of going to a therapist,
Uh huh.
it was so strange.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was like, why do you need to go to a
Yeah,
therapist? I
you
mean,
have
you need to
friends, you have
talk to
family.
somebody. You would always find somebody to talk to, like
Yeah.
a friend. So nobody really cared or had this concept of I need to go and talk to a therapist.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's probably one something Europe's probably got figured out better than America.
Yeah.
And then, 20 years ago they probably
Yeah.
had it even more figured out than
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
don't think today it's the same thing. I think
Yeah.
today the concept of going to a therapist is either trendy or is more like, oh yeah, I need to go and talk to somebody who really knows what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So it has become a little bit more like here, but not at that time, not 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so this is, if anything, it's an excuse to be that. It doesn't have to be that, but it
Yeah.
can be getting into,
Yeah.
and I'm find, as I'm sure you find, and we've even had it together. The one thing about our conversations at the coffee house or B Star after a talk is we almost always get into kids,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
because
That's
you get,
right.
you've got four, I've got five,
Yeah.
and you just can't help but like, hey, someone else that has a lot of kids and knows my struggle. Like,
Yeah. That's right. It's
Yeah.
almost like you feel that connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so that's bringing a little bit of Italy into
Yeah.
California here. That we regularly can check in. Almost always, the first question I have for you, or you have for me, is how are the kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's the quarantine going with doing
Yeah,
homework
with the
and
kids.
pulling your
Yeah.
hair out and
Yeah.
and
And
that's
you
all.
know what? Now that you have, we're talking about kids, it's there is something that I wanted to tell you or comment on. I think it was a few talks back during the Paul's talk.
Hmm.
You had a comment about you being a father.
Yeah, that was the last one. That
That
was
was the
Wednesday.
last one.
Yeah.
You being a father and the fact that you didn't grow up with your father, I think you said,
Yeah.
and that you had this idea that you didn't know if you were gonna be able to be a good father
Yeah.
or not. That was really touching.
Thank you.
It
Yeah.
was really touching. I really felt it because I'm going through a phase right now where it's almost the opposite of what you were saying in during the talk. I I while growing up, I when it when I when you're a kid, you think what you're gonna be doing, what you're gonna be when you grow up, and you
Mhm.
have some kids have a very good idea that
Mhm.
what they want to be. Some others don't, and I really didn't know much about what I wanted to be or what I want to be or what I want to be interested in,
Mhm.
but I knew something that I wanted to be a mom
Yeah.
since I was little, always had this dream of dream as in dreaming when I'm
Yeah, yeah.
dreaming at night.
Literally having
I really
dreams you remember.
dreamt so many times that about the same image that I was gonna be on this island, like that deserted island, with the palms, of course, and the nice white sand, the beautiful
Yeah.
water,
Private island sounds like.
surrounded by a bunch of kids, and they're all my kids.
Oh.
But then there was never a male figure,
Oh.
never in my
Interesting.
dreams.
Yeah.
I never thought any of that. That's why wake no, you wake up and you think about your dream, and I
Mhm.
always thought, oh, maybe it's because I don't have a boyfriend right now, or
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have
Then
anybody
he'll be
specific in
inserted.
my mind that I can insert in the picture.
But now, what's funny, again, I call it dream logic. I love talking
Right.
about it,
Yeah.
how things make so much sense in a dream, and
Yeah.
then as soon as you wake up, you go, wait, why did I, like there's some
Yeah.
weird, like you're like, I've had dreams all the time where I'm like, I'm sawing and like building a cabin, and
Yeah.
it's very important that I build this cabin, and
Yeah.
I'm with like my ex-boss and some other person I don't know, and then as soon as you wake up, you go, why was that cabin so important? You start trying to go
Right.
back and like rationalize it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And so I was thinking dream logic. You go, well, there's no man there because I don't have a boyfriend, but
Yeah.
there was kids. There was
Yeah.
right. Where did those come
But
from?
I don't know. I never connected the dots like
Yeah.
until recently. Maybe I said, wow, well, maybe that dream that's what it meant at that
Mhm.
time, not knowing now. But that even though those were the dreams during the night, the real dreams or whatever
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you want to call them,
Sleeping dreams.
the
Yeah.
sleeping dreams. But then also I would fantasize a lot when I was a child that I wanted to have kids while growing up. So
Mhm.
that's been a constant in my life. And so when I started to have kids, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to raise my own kids.
Yeah.
I didn't care about there. Nothing was that important for me as to be with my kids. So I decided not to go to work. I decided to just to be with them because that's what I wanted to do. So I was so involved
Yeah.
in my kids' life.
Yeah.
So much, it was probably too much.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I wasn't caring about anything else but to be with them and to make sure that they had what I wanted them to have and what they needed.
Yeah.
That could have been two different things.
Mhm.
But then after the split up and after I got divorced and I started to have more time, started to have the kids at 50%, started to have more time for myself.
Yeah.
I started to care about other things that I never thought about in my life, and that sense of guilt started to
Oh yeah, for
come. I
sure.
said, "What? Why don't I? Why am I not so involved in my kids' life like I used to? Why is it that I'm okay
Mhm.
when they're
Oh
not
yeah.
around?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
it was like I had to live with that feeling, with that it was a thought a process that
Uh-huh.
then it triggered a feeling,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, of course.
I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
to stay with that for
Mhm.
a little bit before I realized that was perfectly normal. That was just a transition, and that I could be that the same loving, nurturing
Mother.
mother and caring mother that I wanted to be, and I could be somebody else too.
Absolutely, and I'm thinking too, getting back to the Italian or the European model of there's friends and family everywhere. You can't
Yeah,
get away from them.
yeah,
So why the hell would you pay a therapist to talk to
that's
them
right.
because you have all them?
Yeah,
When you were here, I'm guessing the friends and family that you completely grew up with are
they
you're
were gone.
they're gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they were never gone because I still maintained
they're a phone call away.
yeah,
Yeah.
phone call away,
Uh-huh.
and so I would. I'm still nowadays. I talk to my sister-in-law. She's going through a tough time right now.
Yeah.
Every day.
Mhm.
So they
Yeah.
were never away.
Yeah,
They were.
and so I was thinking just the wisdom of you being able to separate the two, because a lot of people will get lost in the
Mm.
guilt of my kids were my whole world, they should be my whole world, and now my to use a Paul term, interest and attention
Yeah.
is on some other things, and
Yeah.
it feels good, and but no, the feeling of guilt is right, and
Yeah.
being able to question that,
Yeah.
I think that's a huge victory.
Yeah.
You could have very easily have gotten lost in that,
Yeah.
and maybe having family, having the phone calls, having the friends and the people to talk to
That helped.
help
I'm
big time,
sure.
right?
I'm sure.
Yeah,
And it also helped to have somebody like Paul next to me
of
because
course.
he is the one who, uh, besides being physically close to me, but he was also the one who brought me down whenever my thought process was going somewhere,
Yep.
and he was taken over by all the guilt and all the strange loops around my mind. He would just bring me down and say, "Hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if you are feeling like that." So it's been a big help.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can only imagine. And it's just as you said that, I had this thought for the first time just now. This is what I love about the podcast is
Yeah.
the spontaneous stuff that pops up.
Yeah.
Is in some ways I've been like a mini or a poor man's Paul for my wife too, more and more over the
Yeah.
last couple of years of going to talks. In that she'll come to me and she has a lot of mommy guilt, a lot of I work too much and I should spend more time with the kids. Our youngest has autism and she needs a lot of attention,
Mhm.
and she feels bad that she's passing it off to the state at certain times,
Mhm.
because I mean these are professionals, these people have
Yeah. Yeah.
PhDs
Yeah.
in um, uh, teaching. I can't think of the word right now.
Yeah. I
Speech
mean,
therapists,
the
yes,
experience.
speech
Yeah.
therapists,
The
and they're very experienced in
Yeah.
this. And but the mental state will run off with that guilt, that feeling, and
Mhm.
it backward rationalizes the feeling. Well, I
Yeah.
feel this way because it's justified, because da 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again and again, I'm not. My wife can be this for me too, but I'll just be like, you see the illogic,
Yeah.
rationality there, don't you?
Yeah.
Like it's impossible for anyone to be everything. It
Yeah.
does. It's a cliche that it takes a village to raise a child, but it's so right.
Yeah.
Like no one person can be the mother, the father, the uncle, the aunt, the grandma, the grandmother.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And just having us both be able to remind each other of that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that we're in this together. And my wife and I might not always get along 100%. We definitely don't. But it's always put the kids first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always like, instead of, we can not get along with each other, but we get along with what's the best route forward with
Yeah.
the kids, and
Yeah.
that's
I mean, that's the most important thing,
yes,
isn't it?
yeah,
And that's what makes the couple, the two of you, also get along better and get
yeah,
stronger in your relationship.
yeah.
If that you put your kids first, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too, absolutely. And just getting back to what you were sharing, um, it's when you, we'll say before, when you were stay at home with the kids, 100%.
Mhm.
Uh, for someone to come along and say, like, the intention of wanting to be everything for your kid,
Mhm.
that's completely natural. Like,
That's right.
that is the motherly instinct.
That's right.
But you have to actually go against that. You
Yeah.
have to do something for yourself. You have to have free time for yourself.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
so easy to justify, well,
Yeah.
I don't have time for that because the kids da 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 da
Yeah.
da.
Yeah.
And again, getting back to me and my wife, we joke, like, you walk the dog, I have to walk her. Right, and
Yeah.
she says this, she goes, hey, someone needs to make sure they walk me today, and
Oh, that's cute.
yeah, because
That's
she will,
very cute.
she will be wrapped up in the kids 100%, and then if she is able to take a little break from that, she's going to be wrapped up in her business 100%.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something on the to-do list.
Well, it's beautiful
Yeah.
that she can recognize that. She
Yeah.
recognizes that she needs to do something for herself.
Yeah.
That's a big, huge step.
It is, yeah, and
For-
she knows that if left up to her own devices, she won't.
Yeah.
Like she says she outsources her
Yeah.
her self-care.
I know
to other
exactly
people.
how she feels,
Yeah.
because I mean, it took me a long time before I realized that I had to do something for myself and myself only. I mean, it was like and you know what? The funny thing is that my kids, before the split, so we're talking about 2020, up to 4 years ago,
Mhm.
until I was home, until the time I was home, my kids probably did not have, not probably, for sure, they didn't have a relationship with their father
Mm.
at all whatsoever. That's because my presence in their life was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
I was always the one who was doing everything for them, and it was always taking care of anything that concerned them all the time. That his presence throughout the years, I didn't realize that, but it became really. I don't want to call it necessary, because it was necessary on a certain level, but on an emotional level, for an emotional development for my kids, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So then, therefore, when I left, I think that my kids had
Mhm.
like it's happening to me, that they wouldn't have to choose between one or the other.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that with my older son, the one reason why it happened, what happened, it happened what it happened, is because he didn't not have a relationship with his own father.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and it again, and I have this kind of idea, and this is just the meaning I give it, but like, if there's a need, if you don't address it,
yeah,
life will make you address it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And there seemed to be a great need for your ex to for your kids to, like you said, to get to know him.
Yeah, yeah,
And life kind of forced it down everybody's throat.
yeah,
And that
yeah,
happens a lot.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
in family situations and in so many situations.
yeah,
And like you said, like you were just saying, you wish it didn't have to be an either or.
yeah,
And I think from the first time you told me your situation with your oldest, I said, um, every example I've ever seen of a parent isolating uh, a kid from the other
mhm,
parent, when the kid grows up, it
mhm,
may take till 25, 30,
mhm,
but hopefully not that long. Sometimes it's 20,
yeah,
22.
yeah,
Uh, they 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 become an adult, and
yeah,
they no longer look at their parents as their parents, but as fellow adults,
right,
and your whole world opens up. And
yeah,
instead of what happens for so many people, when I was a kid, I would do whatever the hell it took to keep my mom happy. You know,
mm,
right? That
mhm,
if that meant saying that I hate my biological dad just as much as she does, then that's what I'm going to tell her to keep her
Yeah.
happy. And
Yeah.
it took growing up, it took therapy, it took having kids of my own
Yeah.
to be able to go back and be like, hey, yeah, I
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
to both sides, and
Yeah.
that's uh, from the very first time I talked to you, I'm like, it's so hard to have the patience and the trust,
Yeah.
and you've said before, like, I hope that it's not just like that his mind isn't screwed forever,
Yeah.
and that's one of the many tricks of, in any one of Paul's talk, people go, I think I spiritually screwed myself for
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
redemption.
That's
there's
right.
there's no coming back.
Yeah,
And
but how are you gonna know that?
you
There's no
can't.
way you're not
Yeah.
gonna know that.
Exactly.
And after almost 3 years now that I have 2.5 years that I haven't seen or talked to my son, I I think I am at the I arrived at the conclusion finally. I'm hoping, I'm not sure, because it could not be at a point of surrender to the fact that all I could do for my kid, for my son, I've done it,
Yeah.
and there is really nothing I can really do anymore. And all I can hope is that is somewhat okay in the situation where he is, even though there is that gut
Of course.
feeling that
Yeah.
I have to push down or just not to pay attention to, because I know that it's not.
Yeah.
Do I know for certainty? I don't know, but I just have this gut feeling. But I also have to surrender to the fact that it is what it is,
Yeah.
and he will have to go through his journey in
Yeah.
order to realize what's been happening, and just I'll be here for him no matter what, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's what I like again and again. Um, my relationship with my kids, especially my stepkids, is I go, kind of my only job is unconditional love. I'm here for you no matter what.
Mhm.
And then everything else is just semantics. Like,
Yeah.
making sure they eat, making sure they get their
That's
homework
right.
done, they get
That's
a
right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and something about simplifying that
Yeah.
and surrendering to that.
Yeah.
I had this huge thing that, I, talking to my therapist, break down crying, of the idea of facing, if I died, that my girls would have to go on without me.
Mm.
And yeah, that was a very heavy thing for me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in the Paul way of, it's what's not happening. I'm not dead.
Yeah, that's right. Why are you thinking that?
Why are you thinking
Right?
that? But it was there, very real
Yeah.
and very
Yeah.
heavy, and and I, it brought me comfort. I don't know if it brings comfort to other people, but looking at it in a non-duality kind of way is,
Which is the way?
yeah.
What way is that?
Oh,
I
yeah,
want to get
exactly.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
a little bit into that because I have a slightly different approach
Okay, cool. Okay,
to.
so let me tell you
Yeah.
my fucked up version.
Yeah.
But I,
Yeah.
I think, oh God, now I'm afraid this is gonna come out bad. That
Whatever.
it's kind of I'm not as important as I think I am,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Now I feel incredibly important as their father. I feel that it is similar to you, and I didn't expect this. As a kid, I thought I was never going to get married or have kids.
mhm,
It was not important to me.
mm.
Life threw this on to
Yeah.
me, and I was surprised every step of the way.
Yeah.
And I was surprised when I had um, daughters of my own that, oh, they are the most important thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
I would literally give up anything,
Yeah.
to make sure that they're safe, make sure
Yeah.
that they're, um, which that caught me by surprise. I
Yeah.
didn't think,
Yeah,
what
right.
everyone was saying.
Really, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah, it
only,
really is
right?
not about you.
That's
Right.
right.
The reason you wake up and go to work in the morning, it's
Mhm.
not about you.
Yeah.
It's about them. The reason you do fucking everything is
Yeah.
to make sure that they're good.
That's
You
right.
know, and you can't trick yourself into thinking that.
Mhm.
It either it's real for you or it's not real for you.
That's right.
And I'm not that all the time. Of course, I feel like selfish too when I come
Yeah.
home after a long day of work, and they hit
You
me
don't
with
have
something.
to-
Like,
yeah.
do you have any idea I've been up since 5 in the morning? You're bugging me with this crap. But
Yeah.
okay. So I was saying, okay, the idea of me not being around is, I seeing the reality of the role that I'm playing isn't that important. There's a lot of people that lose their parents, and they're fine. They move along, and something about that gives me a peace and a acceptance, and lets the interest and the presence come into this moment of being with them. Because there was, just like the share over Zoom, there was so much fear of, I'm going to screw this up and be a shitty dad, and so many reasons of why I am going to be a shitty dad, because I had shitty male figures. All that interest and attention was not
in
here,
the moment.
Here,
it was not in the present, right? It was a projection of something that wasn't happening.
Exactly.
Right.
And the surrendering to, I can't control if I die and leave them behind. I can't control if they interpret me as a shitty dad. I can't. The only thing that's, the serenity prayer, the wisdom to know the difference.
Right.
The only thing that I'm available for is them here right now.
Right.
And yes, here right now also means planning their education and planning for the future, and saving for college and all that. But that, I don't know why I just got into that whole role. Oh, because you said you wanted to give me the alternative. What
is your approach to non-duality, or
I think it's actually the same as what you said. It's surrendering. Yeah.
You see, I have a slightly different approach to
awesome.
what Paul is talking about.
Cool.
And
I love it.
Yeah, because it's based on my experience, right? Of course, whose experience am I talking about if not mine? Paul talks about this is dreaming, and this is not real, and this is it's as real as a dream at night can be, and you're not, whatever, you're not that important. Yes, I agree with that. I don't really exactly believe that. Maybe it's because I can recognize. I've always been able to recognize the thoughts, and what happens in my thoughts is, those moments we're always talking about. Ida always talks about those moments where the thought system stops, and you have the pause, and you feel that incredible moment of a few moments of really truly bliss, where nothing happens, but you are in this state and you're feeling good.
Peace, serenity.
Okay, yeah. So I had those moments since I was a child. I've always had them. It was part of me. Like, I remember playing with either with friends or playing with my dolls. My thought system is very active, very active. It's always going, spinning on something. It would stop for no reason, for nothing whatsoever. It would stop, and I would feel this incredible sense of well-being, and I was feeling this incredible peace, and I've had it throughout my life always. So because
Paul would call them free samples.
Those free samples,
yes.
they were always available to me since I was a child. So I never looked for them.
Wow.
I never
this is fucking cool.
I never looked for them. So basically, I knew when I had bad moments or bad days, when the thought system would be enwrap me in these crazy stories about either what was going to happen in the future, or how fucked up I was for something that happened. I knew that was just transitory, because some of those free samples was gonna arrive.
Oh my God.
No matter what I was doing, no matter what I was thinking, and they do arrive. I'm not wanted, not.
You have nothing to do with them.
I have nothing to do with them.
Yes.
So having this sense that this gave me a sense that thoughts are just thoughts. They come and go. They're just, sometimes you have good thoughts, sometimes you have bad thoughts. But you know what? When you have bad thoughts, they're just thoughts. Because if those moments are able to come and stop me from having those bad thoughts, just like out of the blue, it means that's what they are. They're just like thoughts.
Okay, I have too much to say right now. I'm so excited that you brought that up. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because, okay, first off, no one had to tell you this.
No.
Yes. You understand that most people had to read it in a book.
Yeah.
Had to, yeah.
I know, and this is why when people share and when people talks about this moment or this, I've always my head always felt like a dog.
It's
I felt
a
like,
given.
so what? I mean, really? You mean you never had these moments? Like I was like, yeah, and that allowed me to take the thoughts into not much a consideration, a great consideration.
Yes.
Like they were like, all right, yeah, they're just some having some bad thoughts, but my mind doesn't work like that. That it gets wrapped around it. It's just almost naturally, or with no effort or no
Yeah.
will on my own. Just they go. I
Yes.
don't know where they go. They just go.
Yes.
They leave. Just like that, they come and they leave.
Uh-huh. So you had like the Buddhist insight.
I guess.
You were just free sample.
Yes, and I did, and I wasn't raised Buddhist.
Yeah.
I was raised actually a total different,
Yeah. Catholic.
Catholic.
Yeah. Did you go to mass and?
Because my mother forced me to,
Uh-huh.
but she never put a foot in a church. My
Oh.
mother was not religious.
Oh, she sent you, but she
But
didn't go.
she would send me, and she would say, "Yeah, you gotta go," because it was more like a formal thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That you
And what
gotta
will people
do it.
think if you don't
Yeah,
go?
you
Yeah.
gotta go and do the first communion because we need to have this big party and we all have to eat. But that's all it was
Yeah.
about. It had nothing to do with being Catholic or anything. But I never felt like that was I didn't
You didn't
like
get anything out of it.
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't get any. Actually, the opposite. I just didn't like anybody who would go into a church and would, say,
Display.
oh, I did this and that. Oh, I'm so. And then he would look at the neighbor and he'd say something bad
Yeah, of
inside the
course.
church.
Uh-huh.
I was like,
It was all performance.
What? It
It
was
was
all
all persona.
performance.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. So
This is so amazing to me. So you have come up in this podcast before, not to make you feel self-conscious.
Oh, okay.
Sharon's brought you up.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike's brought you up.
Yeah.
Probably Keith's brought you up. And when you come up, it's always the idea of Amelia is an example of someone who doesn't have any interest.
that's right.
In spirituality.
Exactly.
But you kind of already get it. You don't have the sickness. That's what Keith and I were talking earlier this week about. Spirituality is like a sickness. It's an illness.
Yes.
It's something that attacks your, for lack of a better word, spiritual immune system.
Yeah,
And it
that's
says,
right.
hey, there's a problem. You're
Yeah.
doing something wrong.
Right.
And we need to heal this
Yeah.
problem. You kind of never got the sickness, but
Yeah.
you got the like, who knows, grace. We're born with the immunity.
That's right.
Right away.
Maybe
Yeah.
it was grace. I don't know what it was, but I'm telling you, it's like I think that the interest really, when Paul talks about the interest being the biggest
Interest and
deterrent,
attention. Yep.
that's what I think it is.
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
like I
100%.
don't have any interest, though I feel like I'm so spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's freaking amazing. I'm so excited right now.
But we're not talking about you, honey.
So, tell me, what are some of the other messed up things Paul's done?
Letting her in the other way.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm very excited. So one of the things I love about this podcast too is that people answer the questions I want them to without me having to ask them, and that's what you just did.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. So are we done?
Wrap it up.
That's fine.
Because that's. I think so many of us in the group and that go to Paul's talks. For me, it was always I always ask kind of the question of when did you get the first hint that the story everyone's telling you is not the whole picture, right? And for me, it was finding people that did what Paul. Have you ever heard of Alan Watts?
I've heard about it, but I never
Okay.
listened.
So
to
Alan Watts was my Paul before Paul.
Yeah.
And I heard him talking about things that you're talking about,
Yeah.
like, hey, just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't
Yeah,
mean you have to
that's
believe
right.
it. And I go, oh, like it. I had to hear somebody say it.
Yeah,
Right. You know,
yeah.
I would. That makes sense. I knew something was up.
Yeah.
Like everyone is going along believing their thoughts. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And but it took me having to hear it. And there's something so interesting about the fact that, and the other thing I was thinking was a lot of people might have that insight when they're young. I think
Yeah.
almost everybody does.
I think so.
And then I have a pretty strong belief that you hit puberty, or maybe even before that,
Yeah.
and it becomes lost. And someone the other day, Rebecca Maroon, who Sharon got
Yeah.
to do the podcast with me, she's a teacher in the non-duality world.
Yeah.
She goes, it's not that it gets lost, but the story of the character becomes primary.
Yeah.
Right? So the
Becomes
story
more dominant.
becomes more
Yeah.
dominant. The
Yeah.
story of Amelia, the story of
Yeah.
Nick becomes what you believe. Your interest and attention and your belief and your faith
That's
goes
right.
into the story.
That's right.
And nobody ever seems to get that hit, like you're saying, of the pause.
Yeah.
Or if it does come along, they quickly cover it up, or they,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
That's
they
right.
go, no, nothing of interest here. Let's get
Yeah,
back to the story,
that's right.
And something about the fact that it seems by what you're telling me, would hit so reliably. It
Mhm.
didn't go away with puberty. It didn't go away.
It probably there were times where it would hit me less.
Uh huh. Okay.
Like I would imagine during puberty, or
Yeah.
when during puberty you become more insecure, so you're always wondering what other people think of you, how they see you, and then that pause became a little less of would occur less,
Mhm.
but it always stayed with me.
Yeah.
It always stayed with me. It never left.
Yeah.
So I just went through what I went through in my life, knowing that no matter what I was going through, no matter what nasty thoughts they were playing up here,
Uh-huh.
that pause will come. Eventually, will come. So I wouldn't panic. That's what happens. A lot of people, they panic because they go into a frenzy mode. How am I gonna get out of this?
Yes.
How am I gonna get out of this? So you putting all that effort and wanting to get out of this, is making it more real than
Of
it
course.
is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. But
Yeah.
it took me having to hear Paul say it before.
Yeah.
Before I was able to let it sort of extend through time.
Yeah.
That and Paul would laugh at the idea of a practice.
Yeah.
But there's certain practices.
Yeah.
One of them is this too shall pass. It's
Yes.
an Eckhart Tolle thing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that this too shall pass was just a given to you.
It was.
Like what it did.
It was. I don't know what it was, Nick. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it was maybe grace. It was something that I definitely. I don't think I was inherited, because both my mother and my father. I don't know. Maybe my father, because he's always gone through life very. He always traveled very light.
Did he?
My father.
Was he kind of zen? Was he sort of like?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
He was just. I've always thought he was just very, not very interested in many things, and not very deep.
Yeah.
So that probably that was my intake. But who knows what my mother was? Forget about my mother. My mother, she had
She was lost in the drama.
more lost in thoughts than anybody I ever known in my life. So I don't know what it was. It's just I think that, as you said before, I think we all come in this world with that availability, with that pause. As when we're kids, when we're little, we all have it. Kids, small kids, 1, 2, they all have that pause.
Yeah.
And then with experience, what happens in life, it just goes away, it gets less. And I don't know what it is that makes it stick
Yeah.
or not. I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, and I think nobody knows what it is
Yeah.
that makes it stick or not.
Yeah.
And that's why, I really, just like a dream, you wake up and then you try to rationalize or make
Yeah.
sense of the dream. This dreaming, the waking
Yeah.
dreaming, we do the same thing. We come
Yeah.
along and we say, well, it must have been, I was just doing it. It was Alan Watts. It was Paul. I have these ideas of
Yeah.
what created the
Yeah.
traveling lighter. But the truth is I have no fucking idea.
That's right.
And nobody does. And what I'm loving about hearing you share is you seem to have a lot more peace than most people with the fact that you have no fucking idea.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Paul's throwing that.
It's throwing shit. I think it's giving some subliminal signs.
Is it time for you to?
I don't know. No, we can go, but I don't know how long is the podcast.
Oh.
When did we start it?
I don't know. Like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
We.
20?
I don't. Was it?
No, it must have been more. It seems to me like we've been.
Well, you packed an hour long worth. Oh, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You packed 2 hours into
into a little.
the last couple of minutes with that
Yeah.
one. That was what an awesome share. Okay, now because I said it earlier, I have the mental note. Let's get into how you heard about Paul the first time, walking into the first meeting,
Yeah.
and walking out.
Yes.
I'm very interested in all this.
Yes.
What was it about his... I'll let you share. So,
Yeah.
where did you first hear him?
I heard, so Paul and I, we have a mutual friend, this guy whom you might know, this French guy, Jean-Claude. He come, you know Jean-Claude?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I met Jean-Claude when our kids went to the same transitional kindergarten class. So we're talking about, there were about 6 years ago.
Okay.
So we had kids in the same class, and slowly Jean-Claude and I became friends, and I was going through a tough time during my marriage, and I felt like I had to do something, and so I was very much wrapped in my thoughts, talking about having this obsessive thoughts on things. I was there. So he listened to me day after day. Then one day he blew out and said, "Listen, I can't take it anymore. You gotta do something about this." I said, "Why don't you go and listen to Paul?" And I said, "Who's this?" I said, "Is he a therapist?" I said, "No, he's not a therapist. It's just somebody who talks about things you might be interested in, or maybe even if you're not interested, just go and listen to him. It might help you feel lighter." Or whatever. So I knew that he was close by because he used to live in Valley, and he told me to go. It has a talk on Saturday in Marine City, and during the week in San Francisco. So one day I said, "All right, I'll go." And did I know Paul? No, I didn't know Paul. No, I didn't know Paul. I had never
First time
seen
you've seen him wasn't live.
No, I've never seen him. I never knew of him. I never nothing.
Okay.
So I walked into this meeting. I was late.
Was this Saturday or Wednesday?
It was a Saturday in
I
Marine
want to get
City.
the picture because the two have very different feels.
The Saturday in Marine City,
Yeah.
in the room. We were not doing it outside, in the room. So I walk, and first of all, I come into the parking lot, and I can't figure it out because he told me he's in this church. So I was looking at the church, and there was nobody in the church. I couldn't even find the church. So what church? But anyway, I went around because I heard his voice from the parking lot because he talks very loud.
Yes.
So
I think you can probably hear him even now, maybe.
Yeah.
He's in the backyard.
I know, right? So I walked into the meeting. There were, I don't know, quite a few people there. I sat like really slowly, like really I sat there, and I started to listen. No idea whatsoever what he would
What
be
the hell he's
talking
talking about. Yeah.
So I stayed there for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I had no fucking idea what he was talking about. Now this spiritual language, all these references to all these live or dead spiritual teachers,
Ramana
I
Maharshi,
said,
you're like, who are these people?
I looked around, and all these people, they were so interested. They were all nodding with their head, and I was like, fuck, I don't understand anything. So I stood up and left.
Okay.
I said, this is not going anywhere. This is not for me.
Yeah.
Stood up and left. 10 minutes. That was my first encounter with Paul.
Right on.
Right on.
Okay.
And then I think I came back. I don't know why. You asked me why. I don't know why. I do not know why.
You know what? Given everything you said, that makes perfect sense.
I just felt this thing. I said, okay, I'm gonna give it another shot. No, it was not even intellectual, mental. It was like more no thoughts at all. I just went.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I understood a little bit more, and I actually introduced myself. I made it to the end of the meeting. Another Saturday. I introduced myself, and I said, I'm here because Jean-Claude sent me, and nice to meet you, and like that. And then I kept on going, but very much on and off. I would go once a month, maybe a little bit more after, but I don't know. I just know that every time I went and listened to him, while I was leaving, when I left, I was feeling just lighter.
Yes.
Without understanding almost anything of what he was talking about. I think it was more like an energetic level in the beginning, until I started to get into and realizing what he was talking about. So it was yeah, and then that's how it went.
Wow, cool. Okay, now if this is too personal, we can cut it out.
No,
The first time you seen him, were you like, oh, I like this guy?
no,
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 nothing.
nothing.
Okay, wow.
No,
So
it
that
wasn't.
developed slowly over time.
It did. I think it did.
Okay.
No, it wasn't any. It was at all. Like
It wasn't
that.
a love at first sight.
No. It wasn't, but it had this. I used to be kidding about it. He had this incredible hug. You know, at the end of
Oh,
the.
yeah, yeah.
You know, he
I do.
hugs.
It's
He's got an incredible
strong
hug.
and- yes.
And I like that.
Uh-huh.
I tell you that.
Okay, yeah.
But honestly, it wasn't associated with anything.
Because I don't want the battery to drain.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was associated with anything like nothing else. It
Huh.
just felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's so cool. So I had a similar experience, and I think that's the norm, is going to the talk or hearing him on YouTube, not knowing what the hell he's talking about,
Right.
and then but there's some sort of, and this is, if I have any advice for people that are interested in spirituality or anything, is I say, if something feels right, just follow it.
That's right.
That's it.
Mhm.
You don't have to understand it right away. In fact, if you do understand something right away, it's probably gonna throw you off.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Because in the very Paul way, it's speaking to what you're not.
That's
It's
right.
speaking to yourself, and you
That's
go,
right.
oh, the self loves this story.
Yeah.
Let's stick with
Yeah.
this, and that's probably gonna take you on a detour.
That's right.
It's gonna hit a
And
dead end.
you're probably gonna use it as a tool for something
Yes,
else.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my experience with Paul, I've told him before on the podcast. I think I've even told you. I started listening to his recordings through the podcast app, and I didn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Mhm.
But I was just kind of intrigued,
And you had some spiritual.
and I knew who Ramana Maharshi was. I
Yeah.
knew a good amount of that stuff,
Yeah.
and I still didn't know what the fuck he was talking
So
about.
imagine me
Yeah.
with no spiritual background whatsoever, zero.
Yes.
Ah.
Yeah, I remember I really loved Ramana Maharshi. He was my guy, my favorite
Mhm.
dead guru.
Mhm.
And Paul would say the thing about the Ramana Maharshi quote, the presupposing of a non-existing
Right.
thing, taking itself to be a non-existing thing.
Yeah.
And even though I loved Ramana, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I was like, I can tell this is very important to him.
Yeah. So I better follow it.
I better follow it. But I think in time it took 40, 50 times of hearing it,
Mhm.
and then I go, oh, and I've talked on the podcast too. I think this is a new thing I'm realizing, but it's probably always been the case. I think I'm a visual or a auditory learner. That's why I
Mhm.
love
Podcasts.
podcasts. Yeah, and because I listen to them when I drive everywhere. I put my headphones in when I'm cooking, when I'm doing dishes or whatever. But it's the auditory. But when something really becomes clear for me, an animation plays
Yeah.
in my imagination.
So it becomes a visual.
It becomes a visual.
Yeah.
The auditory becomes a visual.
Yeah.
But something about me having to, this mind having to turn it into the visual is where the learning happens.
Yeah.
And so many of Paul's things have been the hand in the glove.
Yeah.
All of those really cool visual metaphors that he uses.
Yeah.
Creates a little cartoon.
Yeah.
In my imagination,
Oh,
and then I see it all.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
clearly.
yeah.
And that's why and Paul even mentioned it in the YouTube, so it's out there. I want a good animator to come along.
Yes, yes,
and
I would love to have that too. And now that he's putting the shirts
Yes,
up on
yes.
the website,
Uh-huh.
I was just telling him yesterday, it would be cool to have some like a cartoonist or somebody who knows
of one of his
how
little
to draw.
bits or whatever. Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
like even you can do T-shirts about, he's got a Long Island accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was picturing this shirt about, when he says, he tells the story about the rug.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And he says, I don't have a flaw, and he's always spelling Floor
Yes.
because people don't
They think
say,
you're saying flaw.
it's
Yeah.
a flaw.
Uh-huh.
That would be a good picture,
That would
like
be.
I don't have a floor
I don't have a
with
floor.
Right.
Yes.
And then spell next to it. But only
Uh-huh.
people who follow him would know
Would get it.
what that means.
But that's cool.
What the shirt
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
Or things like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're coming up on an hour.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
Yeah, it was.
That was. I this
I
is
think
why I
we
love
covered
to do
quite a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and this is why I'm so glad I do this, because I feel like I know you on a whole nother level now. I hear, the story and the stuff that you've shared, and we could go on and on forever.
Yeah, maybe we
And
can do another one.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I definitely
yeah,
would
I'm
love
sure
to.
some more things will come up.
All sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I think what a great introduction to the mind of Amelia.
Oh, thank you. And more to come.
Yes.
That's just the
tip of the iceberg.
That's the tip of the iceberg. The mind of Amelia is like whatever.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, anything else before we wrap up? Any burning desires?
Any burning desire? No, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia.
For this podcast. I'm always on the other side, listening to podcasts, listening to other people share.
Yeah. It's
It
cool.
just feels good.
Do you feel the magic? This is what I
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
Yes, I
There's
do.
something about the immediacy of you're being recorded,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of in the background playing that it makes it sucks me into the moment
Yeah.
of really being here, really listening to every single thing
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And then the cool fun things that pop up out of nowhere.
Yes.
you know?
Hopefully people will enjoy this and all of your other podcasts.
I know.
Do you
they'll
get
enjoy
comments about it? Or
I do,
what?
yeah. I get some emails. I don't put it on YouTube.
Mhm.
If I put it on YouTube, I probably, because it's easier to comment on individual episodes.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this today. In this weird way, I like it being somewhat hard to find.
Yeah.
In that Paul
So
link.
where does it go?
It goes to all the podcast apps.
Oh,
so
all right. Okay.
Apple, Stitcher,
Yeah.
Google. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
type it into Google, if you type in Dream Talking podcast,
Yeah.
it will pop up.
Yeah, I
But-
would be interested to listen to other podcasts. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
certainly not about myself. I'll listen to myself.
It's like- I think you would love the ones I've done with Sharon.
Yeah.
They're very interesting. She's
Yeah.
another very interesting mind. I've done some amazing ones with Keith.
Yeah.
I could let you find it. You know Keith is a writer?
No.
Oh yeah, he's a really amazing.
Well, I can tell from only by the text.
By his text, yes.
That he sends me. They
Yeah.
are so incredible. They're
Yeah.
so detailed
Yes, I
every
know.
time, and he's got it down.
He's super
exactly what he wants to say.
descriptive and poetic, and yeah, he sends me texts a lot, and a good majority of them are on insights of Paul's
Yeah.
talks, and we
Yeah.
share stuff, and I go, it's like subscribing to a personal blog that's
Yeah.
just what I'm into, because he's such a good writer.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm not going to be able to do this justice by texting you back, so I have to call you, and then I'll call him. And we've been phone conversation buddies over the
Yeah, so
pandemic,
you
and-
just make sure you tell me again the name. Just text me the name of the podcast
I will,
because I'm
and
going to forget.
I'll text you this episode, and then you'll
Yeah.
be able to
Yeah.
catch all.
All right.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much.
You're awesome. Cool. Do you have to go get your kids?
No.